Good evening. My name is Ray Dwyer, and this is Dr. Joe Dispenza's Meditation and Book Discussion Group. Tonight, we're discussing You Are the Placebo, Chapter 2, A Brief History of the Placebo. This is a brief history of the scientific labeling and things like that. But the placebo is a natural part of the human mind. So the history would go back to the beginning of society. But the placebo concept has been hidden by the titles such as rituals and things like that, and rites and procedures and all that kind of stuff. But it's all the same. You'll understand by the time we're done. Let me start. As the saying goes, desperate times call for desperate measures. When Harvard-educated American surgeon Henry Beecher was serving in World War II, he ran out of morphine, and he did surgery on a soldier without morphine. But before he did surgery, a nurse came up and acted like she was giving him morphine, gave him a shot of saline. The soldier relaxed, and the surgeon went in, did the cutting and stitching that he needed to help that soldier survive his wound. In 1955, after the war, Beecher made history when he authored a clinical review of 15 studies published by the Journal of American Medical Association that not only discussed the huge significance of placebos, but also called out a new model of medical research. Isn't that something? 1955, the Western medicine didn't even have research, didn't even acknowledge or accept the idea of placebo. Further down on page 24. Faith healing is certainly not confined to Christian tradition. The late Indian guru Shatha Sai Baba, widely considered by his followers to be an avatar, a manifestation of a deity, was known to manifest holy ash called Vahashti from the palms of his hands and heal people with it. Even French and English kings reigning between the 4th and 9th century used the laying on of hands to cure their subjects. Oh yeah, we knew that the royalty was holy, right? And yet somehow they could direct that energy and people would be healed under their hands. How could some of those kings heal people? What's going on? What is it that causes such so-called miraculous events? Whether the instruments of healing is faith in a deity alone or belief in the extraordinary powers of a person. If you're the one that needs to be healed and you're healed, do you really care which one it is? You just happy to go home without the medical problem anymore. Might how we assign meaning, here's the important thing, how we assign meaning to a ritual, whether that ritual is saying the rosary, rubbing a pinch of holy ash onto our skin, or taking a new miracle drug prescribed by a trusted physician. Trusted is an important part. Play a role in the placebo phenomena. What if the internal state of mind of the people who receive these cures was influenced or altered by the condition in their external environment? Now we were hinted at what the real subject is. Let's go back a little bit in history. I'm on page 25. In the 1770s, 200 years prior, a Viennese physician, Franz Anton Mesmer, made quite a name for himself by developing and demonstrating what was considered at that time medical model of miraculous healing. Mesmer is the one that put magnets on you and people got well. Why? How could people get well when somebody puts some magnetic ferrite stones on you? How could that do it? Later, he found that he could wave his hands without the magnets to produce the same effect. Soon after each person began, his patients would start trembling, twitching before going into convulsions that Mesmer considered therapeutic. So people would start shaking loose, his energy start coming out. Yeah. Hear people in meditation get shaken. What's going on? Mesmer got it long 200 years ago when he was doing his therapy, putting magnets on people. What's the connection? What's the similarity? A man, Marie Jacques de Chessenet, French, of course. Pardon me, but I didn't even come close to that name. But, well, anyway, a French aristocrat known as Marquis de Puysegur observed Mesmer and took his ideas to the next level. Puysegur would induce a deep state that he called magnetic somnambulism, similar to sleepwalking, in which hence the subject has accessed the deep thoughts. Mesmer thought that the power was in the practitioner. Puysegur believed that the power was in the thought of the subject. See, Mesmer thought it was something he was doing that got people to do it, whatever it was that they did. This lady took it a step further and realized that what she was doing was releasing something in her patients, and the patients was healing. A little bit of education, a little bit of growth in their understanding of the human's experience. In the 1800s, Scottish surgeon James Braid took the idea of mesmerism still further, developing a concept he called neurohypnotism, which we now call hypnotism. Braid became intrigued by the idea one day when he arrived late for an appointment only to find his waiting patients calmly staring into an intense fascination at the flickering of a flame. They hypnotized themselves. They went into a state of trance, just waiting patiently by staring into a candle. After many experiments, Braid learned to get his subjects to concentrate on a single idea while staring at a subject, which put them into a similar trance that he felt he could use to cure their disorders. Cure. And there's two interesting points in that little history. One, they would focus on something. He would suggest a deeper trance. And while in that trance, he could suggest that they heal, and many of them did. What is that similar to in what we do? I think it's an interesting parallel, and this was in the 1800s. Then esteemed French neurologist Jean-Martin Charcot weighed in on Braid's work, claiming that the ability to go into such a trance was possible only in those suffering from condition of hysteria. You got to be, the people have to be disturbed, be able to let go and go into a trance. Huh. Well, anyway, they prove that that's not necessary. They were all able to help hundreds and hundreds of people heal a wide variety of physical and mental problems by changing their minds about their maladies and about how those illnesses were expressed. During the first two world wars, military doctors, most notably Army psychiatrist Benjamin Simon, used the concept of hypnotic suggestibility to help returning soldiers who suffered from the traumas that was first called shell shock, but is now known as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Do you see a parallel, a growth? What I found interesting is I studied this and kind of got out on my head and just kind of watched the picture evolve. It really kind of paralleled my own understanding as I read it. First, it was very almost pharmaceutical. Where I did this, that happened. I didn't really own it. And then as I got into it, first it was something like the power of the suggestion was doing it to me. Remember, Mesmer thought it was something he did. And then as I grew in understanding and skill, I realized, no, it is something that's happening in me that is changing me. I said, oh, okay. And then just like it happened in the 1800s, they did uh, power of suggestion. I started understanding it was something not only happening in me, it was something that was happening in my consciousness that I was directing in me that was doing the changes in my body. So the history here that's really interesting to me is that Dr. Joe actually outlined for me the process that I went through in a vague way of how I learned it. This was, in fact, Beecher's era. After he wrote his groundbreaking 1955 review calling for the use of randomized controlled trials and placebos for testing drugs, the placebo became a serious part of medical research. There it is. It became part of the pharmaceutical modeling in 1955. That's how long in history it took for the medical mindset to even consider the power of suggestion. But in so many studies, the control group was indeed getting better. Don't you know that was really twisting people's minds back then? Because they'd give somebody a piece of sugar and other people this expensive drug that they worked on and have all this papers of explanation stuff. And the guy that got the sugar tablet improved physically, measurably, all the way down to the blood, the same as the guy that got the drug. I bet you back then that was a real headbuster. To that end, the Heating Beecher's petition research began making the randomized double-blind trial the norm, randomizing assigned subjects to either the active or the placebo group and making sure that none of the subjects on either research knew. That was in the 55 and 60s. And I can only imagine, because of the attitudes of the doctors that I've crossed, that that must have been a real mind-blowing thing to deal with. That double-blinded randomized test. Well, just give them the drug. No, because you can, just I can just see the argument. I got this storyline going on in my head here. I don't know. Okay, before we go into letting you chat with me, I only got one more point I want to say. It was in the 1940s, Harvard psychologist Walt Bradford Cannon, who had the 1932 coined the term fight or flight, studied the ultimate nocebo. We've been talking about placebo, meaning to do good, to do, I think it's like no harm. That's placebo. The nocebo response that he called the voodoo response. In other words, this is a placebo voodoo. In other words, it's just a piece, just a sugar pill or just a smoke thing or whatever it is. It's a ritual of some kind. And the person takes the suggestion and it does harm in his body. They're both real. They're because the process, this system in the body is the same. The system to heal is the same system that makes you sick. What is the suggestion that you're giving the body? Health or sickness? The victim's belief in the power of the cure itself to kill him. Oh, then the curse. There it is. The victim's belief in the curse itself to kill him was only part of the psychological soup that brought about the ultimate demise. Isn't that something? He believed in the curse and almost died. In some of these stories, some of them did die. Okay, that's page 29. This looks like a good point to hear any comments because we changed the nature of the chapter here on page 25. Any comments on the history of the placebo that anybody would like to say hello to? Please raise your hand. Ah, Catherine, thank you.
Yeah, this is just a little comment. I'm guessing mesmerized comes from the word mesmerized must come from that person, right?
Absolutely. That's where it comes from. Yeah, you've been mesmerized, which means you've just been suggested into something. Absolutely correct. And it's part of our culture. I mean, it's part of our language. That's mesmerizing. What's he saying? That's you're being suggested in a way that's getting into your subconscious and it's affecting your behavior. I think that's pretty wild. There is no part of that conversation that says this isn't real. There is no part of this conversation that says who is suggestible and who isn't. It's just like anything else. Some people can play the piano and listen to music better than others. Just there are some mindsets that are more receptive than others, not because the principle's wrong, but because they just are not tuned in to receive the suggestion. For obvious ethical reasons, few studies are designed specifically to look at the phenomena of nocebo. I mean, let's test to see what we can make hurt people. I don't think there's too many reviews that would allow for that. But the Japanese got away with one. They took some kids who were allergic to poison ivy. I mean, anybody know friends who are truly allergic to poison ivy? It will put them in the hospital if they get into it. Well, anyway, they got some kids that were allergic to poison ivy, and they took some of the kids and they put a leaf that was totally inert, looks similar, but and they rubbed it on their left arm, and they said it was poison ivy, and they rubbed real poison ivy on the right arm as a control, and both arms swelled up as if they were both poison ivy, even the one that wasn't. They both did. Then after, measuring it, looking at it, and talking, poking it like doctors do, they took another leaf that was totally inert in front of the kids and did stuff to it and rubbed it on the arms and said, this leaf is designed to take the poison out and to heal you. And it was just an inert leaf. All the kids, poison ivy, was relieved. The one that was on the fake arm and the one that was on the real poison ivy arm. All poison ivy was relieved by this fake medicine. Now that's the follow-up is even bigger. Most of the children after this treatment with this fake medicine were no longer subject to poison ivy. They had so overcome it by the power of that placebo that their body quit overreacting to poison ivy. How's that? I think that's pretty cool. In this instance, we could say that the children were somehow freed from the future expectation. They expected not to get subject to poison ivy anymore, and so they didn't. This astonishing evidence that thoughts in a form of expectations have a greater effect on the body than the real physical environment. Think about that. When you go into your meditation, you've heard me say it. How bad do you want it? How much do you want it? Is it real to you? These children expected to be relieved of symptoms of poison ivy. That's a hard chemical that the body really is subject to. But they were so expectant to no longer be subject to poison ivy, the body developed a resistance, a way of treating the exposure to poison ivy, and they were no longer subject. That discussion is on page 30. I kind of paraphrased a little bit, but that's wild, isn't it? Karina, I see a hand up. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So this discussion, and especially with children, reminded me all of a sudden of self-fulfilling prophecy that parents are told not to use when talking to children. So I remember when I was reading parenting books, they were saying, "Don't ever say you're going to fall because that's what's going to happen. Just say." Walk carefully or something like that. So wow, so I just it's amazing. I'm just thinking we were doing the placebo and nocebo when talking to children,
Yes,
or
but particularly when talking to children.
yes, or you're going to drop this plate or whatever. Don't say that. Say, okay, hold this plate very, I don't know, with both hands or whatever. Just the suggestibility of something happen will happen. I just
Yes,
had this realization. Oh, that's amazing.
yes, yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, children have hard social lives. They really do. And it's just say, okay, I know this is a tough day, but you are just going to get through this and you're going to have a great life. I know, just don't, yeah, being a teenager or a child can be hard in school, but you're going to have a great life. Just watch. Well, we'll see. I'll be watching. You're going to have a good life. And get them to take their mind off today's rain and look for tomorrow's sunshine. It's just, yeah, what you say to children is is a program. They really sometimes it really goes in. Connie, I see your hand. Thank you.
Yes, speaking of children, many, many years ago, when I was 8 years old, I had forgotten this totally. I had a wart on my knee, and a family friend, a man, and we're friends with my parents, and he said he saw the wart or something. Somehow it came up, and he said, "I'm going to buy that. Here's a quarter. I'm going to give you this quarter. I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to take it. It's going to go away." I'd had that wart for like a year or more. It was gone the next day. I had totally forgotten that. Oh my gosh. Anyway, holy
Look
cow.
at that. That is oh, I love that story. The important point of that story I think I love the story, but the important point of the story is that it just says that this isn't mysticism. This is just the human experience. Everybody does it. It's just, so the first two chapters of this book is to get you to realize you are living this already. What we're going to learn as we go through this book is how to consciously, deliberately, creatively create placebos for our life instead of just being subject to other people putting it on us. I love that story, Connie. That is really cool. That was fun. Yeah, here's a quarter. Give me the wart. And it just falls off. That is so cool. Okay, I'm going to read from page 31. They were harmed when they thought they'd inhale something harmful. Oh, this is a story of people who are having asthma. And he gave them asthma squirts. And they said, this is an irritant. And their throats physically, they didn't imagine it and choke. Their throats physically reacted to the saline spray and had asthma attacks. Then after a day or so of this, where they measured it and they could see, yeah, your throat's all swollen and red and stuff like that, they gave them the same spray in a different bottle and told them, here, this will relieve it and you'll be well in just a few minutes. And in just a few minutes, they were well. What is it that heals us? Is it really the pharmaceuticals that we put in our body? Have you ever read the side effects of those things? Oh my goodness. Are we more susceptible to catching the flu because all winter long, everyone we look at and see articles tells us that we're supposed to? Be careful when you when you start talking to people. Yeah, I got the flu. Everybody's getting the flu. I'm the flu. You're the flu. Everybody's got the flu. Just be careful about that kind of stuff. Are we more likely to suffer from arthritis, stiff joints, poor memory, flagging energy, decreased sex drive as we age simply because that's the version of truth that the ads have taught us? Be careful about that. What other self-fulfilling prophecies? Yeah, we just talked about that. Are we creating in our minds as adults, being aware of what we're doing? And what inevitable truths, well, once you get over 70, all things fall apart, just what inevitable truths can we successfully reverse simply through thinking new thoughts and choosing new beliefs? I had some cancers that they just said, okay, you're going to be done here. We're going to cut this out. And I said, no. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, for me, that's different. I've been saying no since I was a kid. So I'm just continuing with the same old stubborn man issue. I never knew it'd be so beneficial to me as an old man. But now that stuff comes on me. I go, nope, not me. Groundbreaking study in the 1970s showed that for the first time that the placebo could trigger a release of endorphins. So they gotten well enough in their science now that they would give a placebo and measure the blood and find that the placebo actually created the medicines to relieve the anxieties and depressions. It wasn't just a suggestion. The body actually created its own pharmaceuticals, changing the feelings in the body. Think about that. Last April at the Dallas week long, Dr. Joe in the last day, talked about how in the pineal gland meditation, you can meditate on different chemicals that the pineal produce. And in that meditation, when you get it right, the pineal gland will instruct the release of those compounds. Right then, right there, you can get up, get your blood drawn, and there will be a chemical that wasn't there 2 hours ago. It's not woo-woo. It's hard science now. I think that's so cool because it meant that the relief the study subjects experience wasn't all in their minds. It was in their minds and their bodies and their state of being. You're not faking being well. You actually are well. You're not faking no longer being depressed. You no longer are depressed. Your body is creating the chemicals to relieve the depression. Okay, now we're about to talk about the most important part of this chapter, but I wanted to get over that. Any comments on that so far? That's a little history, and the purpose of that history is for you to see the process that science went through to confirm that the placebo effect is real. That this is hard science. It's not mysticism in any way. You don't need to be some guru doing constant meditations on a pillow to do this. Okay, that helps. But that's not what these people did to get the placebo effect. All they did was receive the intent. All right, I got a hand up by somebody named Study. Hello.
Hi, Ray.
Ah, what's your real name, sir?
Steve.
Oh, hi, Pete. How you doing?
I am well. Um, Question about what you just said. The thoughts can make us sick. Thoughts can make us well. But does it have to be done in the meditation or like after the meditation? Because that's what helped. Because I think there's a bit of disbelief in our brains a lot because, and who knows, generations from now, right, this may not even be an issue. This may just be standard operating procedure. But because we've been raised to think, okay, when you get sick, then you have to go to the doctor. You have to make an appointment. You have to wait for the doctor. They go in, they give you, then they say they want to pull some blood work and then they give you some, come back, do some pills. And, we have this paradigm in our head
Good word.
that that's the way it needs to be. And what Dr. Joe is pointing out is, hey, this might not be the case where we have that ability to heal ourselves to bring out this pharmacy. But then you go ahead and say to yourself, okay, I'm well, or I'm healed from the poison ivy. Let's just take that example. So I'm healed from the poison ivy. And then maybe somebody says something like, and you've been doing good for 2 or 3 days. Somebody, and you kind of maybe you're excited. You brag about it at work. you make the common error that the beginner does, and you want to share this with other people, with the public, and the public isn't ready to hear this, and somebody just says something to you and it gets you off track. Then you start thinking those doubting thoughts again. So like, you see where I'm going with all this
Yes.
is we have those two voices in our head, and because I think our conditioning allows us to believe the doubting Thomas more than it does the faithful faithful Frank will call them, whatever you want to call them, the faithful. um we get twisted around. So is when you're saying all this, is this with the caveat that you really need to do that meditation first to quiet down the mind? Can you speak to some of that stuff?
Oh, that's a very good question. That is really a fair question. And the answer is absolutely not. Let me explain why. If you can sit and receive the suggestion to get well and just go to the doctor and receive his pill suggestion, get in an argument with somebody who curses you and it just gets in your head and you just expect to be sick. If you can do all the sickness stuff in absolutely a normal mind, you can do the other stuff in your normal mind. What is the key ingredient? And you hit it right at the end. I mean, you're spot on in your little conversation when you start. What is the condition factor? That's the secret ingredient. Do you have to be in some kind of meditative state to do this? Well, you sure didn't need to be to get sick by it. If you don't need to be to get sick by it, you don't need to be to get well by it. But what is the conditioning that allowed it to make you sick? And then in its opposite, what is the conditioning that allows you to get well? Do you need to be in some? The answer is flat out no. So then what's the big deal about meditation? It's exactly what Dr. Joe says. Practice, practice, practice. What is it we're practicing when we do a Dr. Joe meditation? We are learning to do what I'm going to talk about in just the next few paragraphs, and you put your finger right on the word conditioning. We are learning to condition our mind to go into the alpha waves, and we get to choose what we receive. We get to choose if we are going to get well or just receive the default programs of our society and be sick. The practice isn't actually a requirement. It is simply a practice to build the skill in us so we can rest and instruct our body to detox and be well. Right on, Pete. That was spot on to conversation. Very good.
This the first is really long strumming. That's also it. Trump doesn't really want to do it. Then this, he wants to use all the toys. The initial.
Renee, I heard you speaking, but it didn't come in very well. Okay. Well, anyway. Okay, Dennis, I see your hand up, sir.
Isn't it Ray? Um, doesn't he talk about, or aren't you going to cover the reason that it is effective is because the individual assigns meaning to that which is being said or done.
Right.
And
That is
then
later
after
on
the
in the
person,
chapter. Yes.
okay, all right,
Yeah.
that's good
The
because
first
it
point,
doesn't,
the first point, Pete put his finger right on the first point. It's conditioning. That's the first step in receiving a suggestion. Once you receive once you become conditioned to receive the suggestion, then the story and the meaning that you just brought up comes into play. But first, we are conditioned. Okay, it sounds like the conversation is right on line with what our next part. Hello? Okay, please put your hand up so we don't talk over each other. I'd love to hear what you have to say, but let's try not to talk over each other. Okay. So let me begin the conversation on the bottom of page 32. Another study in the 70s, this one by psychologist Robert Adler at the University of Rochester, added a fascinating new dimension to the placebo discussion, the element of conditioning. That is an idea that we will talk about for the rest of this book in one point or another. Conditioning, an idea made famous by Russian psychiatrist Pavlov. Everybody, I'm sure, knows about Pavlov's dog, where he conditioned the dog when he rings the bell to salivate because he was going to give him food. And pretty soon he just rang the bell, and the dogs were so conditioned to expect food, they would salivate. Where's my food? They just expect it to be there. That's conditioning. We are conditioned to respond in certain ways in our society because we have been given a stimulus over and over and over again throughout our life. In this way, the body is actually conditioned through repeated past experience to become the mind, and conscious thought is no longer totally account. When you are conditioned to something, you automatically respond because of a body mind, a response that is memorized in the body, and you just do it. That is how military trains their soldiers to respond so directly when a stimulus happens. They just all in, the stimulus, the yell, the charge, the command, and the soldier just goes, ah, and he charges. And it just is deep programming to do that. So conditioning creates subconscious internal changes in the body by associating past memories with the expectation of internal effect actually occur. The stronger the conditioning, the less conscious control we have of these processes, and the more automatic they become. You take somebody who's in trained military, and it could be a nurse dealing with emergencies. I mean, there's lots of different cases. I'm just talking about something I'm familiar with, that the training is so intense that when a certain stimulus emergency comes up, the soldier just goes charge, and hell or high water, this is coming. He's going to perform. A nurse in the emergency room has trained her skill, and the body comes in hurt, and she just goes right into it. I'd say most civilians, or should I just say non-medical, would probably just roll over and faint at some of the things nurses just dive in and work on. Oh, you kidding me? Some of the body injuries and stuff where the nurses just get in arm deep in bodies and do what it takes to save a life. That's a conditioning that I couldn't relate to, just demystifying the process. Benson developed a similar technique, which he called relaxation response, described in 75 book. Found that just by changing the thought pattern, people could switch off the stress response. What's going on in your head matters in your health. If you have a chronic sickness, step back and ask yourself, I don't care if the doctor tells you you've got toxicity or not, step back and ask yourself, what in me energy-wise is making my body hold this sickness? Work on that, change it. You may still need medical intervention, but until you can teach your body to get well, it may not. It may have received a suggestion to be sick or so much stress that it's broken inside, and you have to teach it to be well again. That's what I had to do. By this time, the Eastern practice of transcendental meditation taught by India guru Maharishi Mahesh Yogi caught the United States, fueled by the enthusiastic participation by several celebrities. Demystifying the process, he developed a similar technique, which he called relaxation response. The mystics were healing people. They'd teach them to relax, and their body symptoms would heal. When former minister Norman Vincent Peale published his book, The Power of Positive Thinking, which popularized the idea that our thoughts can have real effects. In 76, when political analyst and magazine editor Norman Cousins published an account in New England Journal of Medicine of how he had used laughter to reverse potentially fatal disease. Cousins also told his story in his best-selling book, Anatomy of Illness, published a few years later. Tells a story of a guy who was chronically sick, and the doctor is going to give him pills for the rest of his life, and he's going to die of debilitating, body breakdown. And, he says, well, if anger and sadness made me this way, maybe happiness and laughter can heal me. And so he would spend time every day focusing on the idea is I'm going to make an effort to be happy and laugh. And he watched funny shows on television every day and allowed himself to laugh and get high and relax on these goofy shows. And he healed. And he actually wrote a medical journal, and it was published on it. We may think that's old hat now. Back then, and it was only 40 years ago, that was big news. If I was to tell you now, you could detox by doing a placebo on your body, and you could tell your body to refresh. You wouldn't think I was just blowing smoke. You say, okay, how? You would ask me how. I wouldn't have to sell you on is it even possible? You go, okay, tell me how. Yeah, there's some flowers. How? All those scientists at that time didn't have a way of understanding or explaining such miraculous recovery. Research now tells us it's likely that epigenetic process were at work in breaking the habit of being yourself. I introduce you to that word, epigenetics. It's here again, and it's a big deal in this book because epigenetics is an energy change in the body. It's when the signals from your energy tell your genes to do something different. In other words, the instructions operating in your genes is above the gene, and they have to do something different, and you heal. He simply downregulated, turned off old genes, and upregulated new ones. Many years later, research by Hayashi of the University of Tsukuba in Japan showed the same thing. A diabetes patient, and they cured diabetes. Researchers summarized that laughter influences many genes involving the immune response, which in turn contributes to the improved glucose control. Do you have a little bit of type 2 diabetes going on? Besides changing your diet, that's the obvious one. Find some way to make yourself laugh each day. Do something silly. Watch some silly shows. Lift your spirit. Learn to love. We talked about what about meditation and what does that do for you? For me, among the many other things it did, Dr. Joe's meditation taught me to rest in my heart, and I learned to love. What an amazing thing. This old man learned to love in a way that I didn't even know was there. I didn't even know about this kind of love that I have now. When you get this kind of thing working in you and the heart energy that goes with it, the body begins to heal. That's how it works. That's epigenetics. You change your energy. I do this because I have this image of a column of light in me, of me, something like that. And when this frequency changes, the instructions to my genes change. Remember, it was like 50 years ago, 60 years ago, Einstein says, the particle does not create the wave. The wave instructs the particle. When we, the wave, the energy of ourselves, change, that change is then communicated to our particle, the body. That's science. That's not woo-woo. That's not mysticism. We're nowhere even near the level of what we could call mysticism. This is a human experience we're learning. The process works not because of any magic in the tablet, but because the human body is its own best apothecary, and because the most successful prescriptions are filled by the body itself. That's what Dr. Joe demonstrated last April here in Dallas about the placebo. You just sit and do a meditation, tune into the placebo, think about those hormones and those chemicals that you want to release. And it does. It's testable. Inspired by Cousin's experience with the alternative and mind-body medicine now in full swing, Yale University surgeon Bernie Siegel started to look at why some of his cancer patients with poor odds survived, and while other cancer patients largely should have lived, died of the cancer. What was the difference? On page 36, there's a phrase that I underlined, and I'm going to put it again because, man, it described me. Siegel works to find cancer survivors largely as those who had festy, fighting spirits, and he concluded that there were two incurable, and he decided there were no incurable diseases, only incurable patients. That was me. I was a fighting spirit. I told no to this sickness that everybody told me I was going to die of. You hear me say it many times. How bad do you want it? Do you want it bad enough to yell at that shadow, that darkness that's come to claim your life and say, no, you can't have me? And reach up and grab the new energy that is you? If you don't replace that old thought with something new, you've given nothing for your mind to cling to. So you can't have me. That is my new self. See that light? That's me. And I'm going to get there. You can't have me. Isn't that something? I wish there was a date on that, but there's not. Profusion of new antidepressants that appeared around the 1980s into the 1990s would next ignite a controversy that would ultimately, although not immediately, increase respect for the power of the placebo. This is another one that I have a little bit sensitivity to. In researching a 1998 meta-analysis of published studies of the antidepressant drug, psychologist Irving Krish, PhD, then at the University of Connecticut, was shocked to find that in 19 randomized double-blinded clinical tests involving more than 2,300 patients, most of the improvements was due to the antidepressant was not due to the antidepressant medications, but due to the placebo. Now, I make an issue of this because when I was on the cancer medicine was dark enough, but the psychiatric neurotoxins that I was made to take and checked on and counted and looked at my blood test to make sure I was taking was mind-altering, terrible drugs. All they had to do is know how to tell me to be healthy, and they didn't. Modern doctors don't know how to tell you to be healthy. Bottom of page 37. After all, the trials provided stunning proof that thinking that you can get better from depression can actually heal depression just as well as taking a drug. The people in the study who got better on placebo were actually making their own natural antidepressant, just as Levin patients in the 70s. You take the placebo, an antidepressant, they give you a pill, and he says, this is the antidepressant and it'll help you relieve it. It'll give you the dopamine and stuff that you need. And you take it, and after a few days, they'll give you a blood test, and you will have the antidepressant uh, hormones in your body. Your body will receive the instruction that you gave it and produce its chemicals, just as if you had taken the actual drug. And yet, these antidepressants won't have the counter health effects that the pharmaceuticals do. It was only a matter of time before a neuroscientist would start using sophisticated brain scans to take an intricate look at what happens neurochemically when a placebo is administered. An example of the 2001 study of Parkinson patients. So they started giving placebos to Parkinson patients. Remember, placebos, uh, Parkinson is a lack of dopamine. And so you get pharmaceuticals that are supposed to stimulate the body, force the body to make dopamine, stuff like that, and it has all kind of negative side effects. So this guy started giving placebos to Parkinson patients, telling him that it was a treatment to start reducing Parkinson effect. And some of them received that suggestion, and their Parkinson started diminishing and diminishing and diminishing. He found that the patient's brain scans continued to light up in the same places as when they were getting the somaterapin. That was proof that the brain was indeed producing the same substance, in this case, growth hormones of its own. So they test these people, and the brain is producing the right chemicals to do the job that they told the pill to do. They were conditioned to believe the doctor. That's the conditioning. They had the element of the pill. They had the story of what it's going to do. And they felt the encouragement and the priming and the story, everything encouraged them, gave them hope, and the body received it. And the body changed and did what it had. There's 4 elements of the placebo in that little story. They were conditioned by the doctor. The patient believed the doctor. They had an element, the pill. The pill came with a story. And because of the story and everything put together, the patient was encouraged and received it. And then the body had the effect. Was there any meditation in that? No. If the truth be told, our bodies are indeed capable of creating a host of biological chemicals that can heal, protect us from pain, help us sleep deeply, enhance our immune system, make us feel pleasure. If a particular gene was already expressed so that we made those specific chemicals at one point in our lives, and we stopped because of some type of stress or trauma, if we ever could do that, then that gene is still part of us and we can learn to turn it back on again. So let's begin to look at how this happens. The neurological research shows something truly remarkable. If a person keeps taking the same substance, his brain keeps firing the same circuits in the same way. Because of this kind of conditioning, remember, conditioning is the prepping of the mind. You were conditioned that when that doctor walks in, he is the conditioning. You believe what he says. That's our conditioning. Because of this kind of conditioning, when the person takes the placebo, the element in the story, and receives it, the same hardwired circuits will fire as when he takes the real drug. Research also makes another point very clear. Different types of placebo treatments work best with different goals. A little bit of human nature here. For example, in the sumatriptan study, initial verbal suggestions that the placebo would work had no effect on the production of growth hormones. To use placebo effective subconscious psychology response by associative memory or altered functioning of the immune system, conditioning gets results, whereas the use of placebos to change more conscious response, a simple suggestion or an expectation works. So there isn't just one placebo response. That's why some people just say, oh, placebos don't work on me. Because there are some people who the direct placebo, they've got programs in them that don't let it in. But that just means that they've already received a placebo that says no. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. It actually proves that it does. That showed that placebos work even when people know they were taking a placebo. Okay, here we go with meditation again. These people, they took a group of young people and said, we're going to do a study. We're going to give you some pills, and they are just sugar pills, and we're going to call them medicine. And we're going to tell you how these placebo medicines will heal your pain. And so these people, they said, okay, these are just sugar, right? They could be M&Ms or Skittles, whatever. And they said, and they acted as if they were medicine. They knew full well that they weren't getting any medications, and yet, after hearing the suggestion that the placebo could relieve their symptoms and believing in an outcome independent of the cause, their bodies were influenced to make it happen. There it is. What we're learning to do here in this book is that to be consciously, creatively, heal ourselves. Have us do it to ourselves so that we don't have to go to somebody, pay him some fee to do a magic ritual on us, whether it's lighting a candle, spreading stinky smoke in front of us, doing a voodoo dance around us, or give us a pill. We're going to study how to do this ourselves. Even knowing that we're just doing a placebo, the body doesn't care. A 2007 study at Harvard psychiatrist Crum and Ellen Langer involving 84 hotel maids. Now, this is pretty good. There's a hotel with a whole bunch of maids, 84 maids, and they divided them in two groups. One group, they just went in and talked about the work and how much energy they do. And the second group, they went in and they told the second group that the energy that you put in meets the suggested requirements for a healthy body and weight loss. That's all they did, was give them information, knowledge. Through knowledge, you drive a suggestion into your body. Without the knowledge, you just default according to your environment. And they are the ones feeding you your suggestions. But these people gave this second group of housekeepers the knowledge that what they're doing strengthens their bodies and burns calories and helps them lose weight. Didn't tell them to change anything they ate. And they didn't. They came back a couple months later, and the maids in the first group doing the same thing. They didn't lose any weight. The maids in the second group doing the same thing, eating the same foods. They didn't suggest any change in diet, and yet they lost weight. Why? By the knowledge of what they did would help them lose weight. The knowledge alone was enough to tell their body to release weight, and it did. What do you tell you? Oh my goodness. What do you tell you? We mentioned earlier about, I think it was Connie who talked about telling the kids how wonderful they are and to encourage them and tell them they're smart and tell them they can do it. They can carry that plate without dropping it, something like. And so they did. They learned to. What do you tell you? When you're challenged, do you hear that voice in you that says, no, you can't do that? Or do you have that voice in you that says, come on, take your time, you can do this? I've got a lot of no still left in me, even with all the crazy stuff that I've succeeded in. And so I've got a whiteboard, one of those things with eraser boards, in my little office back in my home. And I put a little sign on it that says yes, to remind me every day, yes is the answer. Don't matter what the question is, yes is the answer. As these studies show, our awareness alone can have an important physical effect on our bodies and our health. What we learn, the language that's used to define what we experience, and how we assign meaning to the explanation that are offered, all affect our intention. That's going to be another word that will become important to us as we go through. What is the intention? Intention's related to the story of the placebo. What's the intent? Why are you doing this? What's the intention driving your heart? And when we put greater intention behind the things we're doing, we naturally get better results. As more intentful our heart is, the more sure the results. If you go from just having a good idea to on a mission, the mission is much more intentful than just saying, yeah, it's a good idea to do that, right? You ever met somebody who is just on a mission? Well, you might as well get out of their way. In short, the more you learn about what and the why, the easier and more effective the how becomes. That's why we're doing the history a little bit, because we're learning the what and the why of some of this. First of all, that we have a society that is only recently becoming acceptable to this mind job that we're calling here a placebo. So as mentioned earlier, we've got thousands of years of Newtonian history that says the church does the mind stuff and the body does the science stuff, and the two are separate. We also assign meaning to other factors, such as the color of the medicine. Oh, yeah. Remember when we talked about some placebos don't work with some people? Well, they found out that if you take, do you want to choose the red pill or the blue pill? Are you affected by the doctor wearing a jacket versus coming in with casual clothes? You know, on and on and on. Does two pills heal you better than one? Some people, it's true. Is a red pill more stimulating to you than a blue one? Just a pill color, same ingredients. One's a red. You take two red pills and it's going to crank you up. Even if it's just M&Ms. More recent research shows that beliefs and perceptions can also affect scores on the mental performance. This is a sad part of the chapter. It talks about how you teach people a bias. And they had a group of students that were pretty well performing the same. And then they separated them according to certain genetics, shall we say. And they told the Asians that they were smart and that they do better on science and math than they told the Anglos and other people that the Asians were smarter than they were, and that they expect them to do better on the math and science, but you'll do okay. And after being chosen for their similarities to do this, the Asians started getting better scores in math and science than the rest of the class. In the same group or a similar group, where they were chosen to be part of the group because they all had similar scores, they separated the women from the men and told the women that men make better scores on mechanical aptitude type of test than women do. Remember, they were chosen to be part of the group because they were similar on their base study. Now, with that priming of the condition, tests that followed as they trained together, the men did better than the women. Isn't that something? And on and on and on. Listen for the society around you priming your conditioning. You really hear it about food stuff. Oh my goodness. You hear it a lot about pharmaceuticals. God, where I'm staying now, my television is just a cheap hookup, and so I can't dodge commercials and stuff. So I'm watching some of these pharmaceutical commercials. And they are doing serious commercials, serious priming and conditioning commercials. I'm looking at it just man, people can get sick just watching television. I'm telling you, it's terrible. I saw somewhere on YouTube that Europe doesn't allow that kind of ugly commercials. But United States, we're all for supporting pharmaceuticals. What we're conditioned to believe will happen when we take the pill, and what we think that everyone around us, including the doctors, expect will happen when we do so. Think about when that doctor is priming you on that pill, you think about it really well, what he's priming in you. Could it be that many drugs or even surgeries actually work better because we're repeatedly primed, educated, and conditioned to believe that their effects, when if of the placebo effect, those drugs might not work as well or at all? I messed up that sentence, but you got the idea. Listen to how you're being primed around that environment. Start breaking those bonds, those primings in your subconscious. To break them, just like those maids, get the knowledge in you that, look, I'm being primed. Part of my effect is simply I am primed and conditioned to have this effect. Holy cow. Okay. The next part I think is really cool. On page 44 and 45, getting toward the end of the chapter. This is an upside to this chapter. Excuse me. Two recent studies from the University of Toledo shed the best light on how the mind alone can determine what someone perceives and experiences. For each study, researchers divided a group of healthy volunteers into two categories, optimistic and pessimistic, according to how the volunteers answered questions. In the first study, they gave the subject a placebo, but told them it was a drug that would make them feel unwell. It'll upset your stomach, but the pessimist had a stronger negative reaction to the pill than the optimist. Think about that. In the second study, the researchers gave the subjects a placebo as well, but told them it would help them sleep better. The optimist slept better, while the pessimist didn't. What do you expect when you take that placebo? What is your intention, your expectation? Remember those girls with poison ivy? They were so sure that they were past the effect. They had full expectation they were no longer affected by poison ivy. They weren't. These are children. They don't fake it. It's in their body. So the optimists were more likely to respond positively to the suggestion that surrounded would make them feel better because they were already primed to hope for a better future. When you do your meditations daily, prime yourself for a better, loving life. It will insulate you from the suggestions of a harmful life, just like the placebo did in this study. Those who had negative effect, when given a negative environment, they were more affected than the optimist who had little effect. In other words, in exactly the same environment, those with a positive mindset tend to create positive situations, while those with a negative mindset tend to create negative situations. This is the miracle of our own free will, individual biological engineering. This isn't woo-woo. This is the human experience I keep speaking about. Now that you know, remember the maids, now that you know, simply having a loving, uplifting energy will help you feel better, heal better, and create a better life around you. Will you do it? That's what you practice, excuse me. That's what I practice in my meditation. Those first few years was important to me to learn to be optimistic. After having a lifetime of darkness in my mind, I learned to look up and find the light. The rest is history. Considering that the latest scientific research in psychology estimates that about 70% of our thoughts are negative and redundant. The number of unconsciously created nocebo-like illnesses might be impressive indeed, certainly much higher than we realized. The average person has 70% of negative thoughts throughout their day. So when you sit and do your morning meditation or your daily meditation, whatever, be sure to put a light in your mind. It has to be brighter, stronger, more convincing, more heart shared than the noise of the negative stimulus that you'll get throughout the day. And that will drive the healings of this optimist in your life. Anybody got something to talk about that last part? Start talking about conditioning and priming. That's where this part began. Remember, Pete mentioned about conditioning and priming and stuff, and then Dennis brought up the meaning of it. We just discussed it in this, just if you're an optimist, the meaning of events is a step along your journey to a better life. If it's raining, that means that my grass will grow green. If it's sunny, that means my grass has sunshine to grow green. Just that's my optimist view. I don't care if it rains or sunshines. I get the same meaning. Okay. From Gloria. Okay, Gloria, speak up. I don't see your face, but I think you're allowed. Go ahead and see if you can get unmute.
I'm unmuted and you can see me.
Okay, there you are, Gloria. Thank you
am
for
I-
bringing the note up.
It's dark. It's yeah. So
So what's the optimistic meaning of dark? Oh, that just gives me a time where I can focus on the light of my mind. See, there you go.
heavy, very heavy. So I get the whole optimistic viewpoint, but if you've been a pessimistic most of your life, you can't just convert like found.
It's not a pill. You're so right. It's not a pill you just take and get better.
No,
It's a choice
a
you have to
journey,
work
and,
on. Yeah,
you
it's a
don't.
choice you have to work on. That's right.
Right. That's it. It's choice.
It is first and foremost a choice. I will work my way through this.
I mean, I can't think of anything that optimism doesn't make better.
That's right.
All right. So I guess I'm thinking, and I'm new to this, but do you have to exclude traditional medicine from everything you're saying, which I can't really find fault with, but to the exclusion of traditional medicine?
When I've got a 15-year history of battling cancer in my body.
What kind?
I've got a list of them. First, I went through 9 years
list
of
of 'em?
state multiple. First, I went through melanoma cancer. I had phase 4 melanoma cancer, and for 9 years, I was told I was going to die.
Uh-huh.
Then I started doing Dr. Joe's work, and the melanoma cancer and skin cancer ended. Then I was told I had colon cancer, and they're going to extract the lower part of my colon. And I went into surgery, and my colon had completely healed. Well, I was certified PTSD, and I can tell you all the nightmares in my mind are cleared, but that wasn't colon. Okay, then I was told I've got lymphocytic leukemia, and in a few years it will start breaking me down. That was 5, 6 years ago. My healing is so complete now that my medical benefits is going to go from 100% to 0. That's lymphocytic leukemia. You can't find on the internet someone who will claim they self-heal lymphocytic leukemia. It doesn't happen. But I am almost that person. How am I doing it? Just exactly what I'm saying. So you're talking to somebody who really does this stuff, really, really does. And it really, really has changed my life.
And you took no medication through all of that?
Well, on the during the time I had melanoma cancer, I was facing my sixth surgery. So when it was time for me to go to surgery, I went to surgery. If the doctor says you got tumors, I want to cut them out. I go ahead and cut them out. It's just, and yet when I went into my sixth surgery, they cut it open and woke me up and said, Ray, what's with this? I said, what? All the tumors in this section are dead and your body's absorbing them. My cancer didn't, I don't own it. That cancer didn't heal. It died abruptly and my body absorbed it. Boom. The colon cancer, I've got the MRI pictures. I had tumors in my colon. And yet I went into surgery. I'm not going to die. I'm not so foolish as to say, no, I'm Mr. Cool. I'm a meditator. No, they doctors showed me pictures. You got tumors in there. Cut it out or die of cancer. Okay, let's schedule the surgery. In the interim of that conversation, I was doing some serious, heartfelt, on the floor crying meditation. I went into surgery, and the surgeon told my wife there was nothing there, not even a polyp. I was 70 years old at that time, and hadn't had a colon exam in years and years and years, and they saw this stuff, and it was clean. She told me to get dressed and go home.
Hard to
2000.
believe.
Hey, you look. My medical records is about 3 inches thick. I've got in 2020, February 2020, I was told I had CLL, chronic lymphocytic leukemia.
Holy crap, buddy. How many diseases have you had?
I was a very dark person.
I mean,
I was a
that
very
alone, it's your thing, but that alone makes it really hard to comprehend.
right. I was a very dark, angry person, and I hurt people.
You can't be any more darker or angrier than I am. I'm telling you.
Well, I spent 2 years in Vietnam. I got very
Okay.
dark, very angry, and I hurt people. And I lost one job after another because people just couldn't tolerate me. They could only tolerate me for so long, then they got rid of me. So anyway,
Well, I didn't
so
go to Vietnam, but I am retired military and I didn't have a good time. So
exactly. So you have
my
some idea
childhood
of what I'm
sucked.
talking about.
So
I had a very dark mind, and my body broke down, started breaking down in 2009. And that's when they diagnosed me with full metastatic malignant melanoma cancer, as well as all the other skin cancers. It was 2018. I found Dr. Joe.
metastasize.
Oh yeah, full
Metastasize.
metastasized. I had tumors in my body, and they were like I said, in 2019, it was my sixth melanoma surgery. And I had my face cut open, under my limbs, under here and there, just all over the place. And so in 2019 was when I had the roll on the floor, electrified meditation, and the melanoma ended. 2 weeks later, after that meditation, they cut me open for surgery, and they were all dead in my body. Next year, I went in for colon cancer, and there wasn't there anymore. I've got the pictures. It wasn't there anymore. 2020. February 2020, when they're trying to figure out what happened what happened last year. How did these cancers disappear? My primary care came up with, Mr. Dwyer, I got to tell you, you've got CLL, chronic lymphocytic leukemia. It is incurable, intreatable. As the symptoms come up, we'll treat you, but there's nothing we can do to get rid of it. And I sat there and growled at him. He says, what's going on, Ray? He says, you don't know me, do you? He says, what do you mean? He says, you've seen what I do. You've seen what I've done. He says, what do you mean? He says, I ended melanoma, right? Says, yeah. I ended colon cancer, right? What makes you think I won't end this? He said, well, because nobody ever has. And I just looked at him and said, watch me.
So, and I mean this in my question to you is, if you had this mindset that cured you from whatever your initial disease was, melanoma, that had metastasized, why did you seem to continue to contract all these other diseases?
I don't walk on water. I'm pretty good, but I don't walk on water. It's just I was able to heal that, and then I was able to heal the next one, and then I was able to heal the next one. I don't, I'm just doing the best I can. When it gets in my face, I take care of it.
Oof.
Your question is
Man, I
real.
would have thought I had some really bad karma.
Yeah, well, I had a really bad life. Just I really was a dark, angry person with the,
I hear that.
you know, and
I feel that way
I don't
right
want to
now.
go into stories to valid, but yeah, I was a very toxic person, and my body started wanting to die when I was 60 years old. That's when it started.
Okay.
And since then, I've had one cancer. When I first was diagnosed with melanoma cancer, I was 60 years old.
Oh, wow.
I'm 75 now.
Oh, well, congrats.
So when I say
But you got to die from something. So,
not yet,
not
not
yet.
yet.
Okay. Well, non-existence is a bitch.
Well, I'm not worried about. I have things to do. I am.
You're
I
not
have.
worried about non-existence?
Oh, there is no such thing.
There's no such thing as
If if
non-existence.
if you had the meditations I had, you would have the perspective I have.
Uh-huh.
You are not non-existent. You are not your body. Your body is an expression. Let me make it perfectly clear. Even Einstein says the particle does not define the wave. The wave defines the particle. You are not the body. You are the wave expressing in the body.
Yeah, but
And
when
that which
most
you
people
are,
think of
and
existence,
that which you are is eternal.
okay, but I think when most people think of whatever afterlife they have a concept of, that it's them, the person, the personality, the everything, the memories, and that carries on. But when
No.
that doesn't carry, which it
Your
doesn't,
conscious, your I am carries on.
your I am.
Yes, you that say I am, that will still say I am.
Okay.
Let me
No,
give
I
you
get it.
something.
Then Maharishi, I can't think of his last name.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
he was correct.
Well, yeah, but he didn't think that he, as the person that he was, and everything he was, and all his memories and everything he did, was going to carry on.
The Hindu do, the Christian scriptures do, even the Islamic Christian scriptures say you do.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Well, yeah,
and
the
Christianity. Oh my
mysticism,
God!
the
If you don't
mysticism
think
does.
Christianity does
I
that,
think the Christianity, the religion is whacked, so I'm going to get trouble for that, but I like their
for me
scriptures.
both.
Look at their scriptures. Well, just look at science. Let me tell you what the quantum science says. The quantum science says you are an energy field. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only change from one form to another. You are an eternal energy field. Where did your energy field come? You came from the source. You are an expression of divine light. You
Mhm.
are an energy being. Okay, you got me stirred up. Let me say it. You are an energy being. You are an electric energy being. You are a luminous electrical energy being.
I get all
You
that. I
are
get
an
all that.
eternal electric energy.
I get all that.
Okay,
But
and
just
now I'm only
trying to make
halfway
it
done.
through the day, that doesn't
That is how you
help
make it through the day.
necessarily.
That is how you make it through the day.
Well, okay. All right. I agree.
Otherwise, you'll go crazy trying to survive when you are a mortal being.
Uh-huh.
Nancy, correct. I am light. Listen to the word human. Think of the word human. Hue is a frequency of light. You are a hue being,
Uh-huh.
human being. It's in your name, human. Well, for you, hue woman, you are a light being. It's
Uh-huh.
it's who and what you are. You have been taught an ego survival of the body. Fine. I'm about as much of a survivalist as anybody, and I'm willing to enforce it with the skills that I have.
Uh-huh.
But now I know The I am of me is an eternal being. There it is. I am an energy being. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Julie. That's
Yeah, but
exactly it.
the Maharishi,
No,
whatever.
it's not. I'm telling you, I am telling you,
I read
that
the
is
book.
who
Read the
and
book.
what.
I admire him.
Sure. That is who and what you are.
Okay.
And I've got stories to back it. And if I was sitting next to you, I would take your hands, go into meditation, and demonstrate it right in front of you. And I would light your mind up, and you would go, "Oh, that's what you mean."
Okay. Well, keep in
It
mind,
is.
I'm a pessimist, so
Where do you live, Gloria?
I'm close to Austin.
Oh, that's too far for me to do. I'm out north of Dallas and Garland.
Oh, but Texas.
Yeah, maybe next time Dallas has a Dispenza retreat, you can come up here and we'll meet, and I'll maybe have an opportunity to share some of my light with you.
Okay. And I shall share mine as well.
All right, we got a date coming. I don't know, maybe next year, maybe 2 years from now. Oh, looking at it. I'm planning a date 2 years out with you.
I'll have to check my social calendar, but
I love it.
all right. I don't want to take up the whole because there's
But
lots of people there.
but I think that was worth saying because that actually has to go into tonight's conversation about conditioning and priming.
Oh
You
my
were
God. This
conditioning
being
and
recorded.
primed. You were conditioning and primed to put your full ID in your survival ego. That's how I lived for most of my life until I started having these meditations that changed me.
Uh-huh.
And the word is surrender. And until you cross that bridge, you'll have a hard time understanding. Karina. Oh, thank you, Gloria. That was a good conversation.
Yeah,
Karina.
I got more, but that's all right.
Yeah, another time.
Another time.
Karina, thank you.
Just a small comment. I am reminded of what Dr. Joe Dispenza says when people start doubting and telling that we can't do that, we cannot maintain this state of mind during the day, etc., which is very, very, very common, and I'm one of them. What Dr. Joe says is that really, when we learn to quiet our mind, when we meditate, when we go through this process, any treatment is going to work better. So Dr. Joe Dispenza doesn't say, "Oh, don't go to the mainstream medicine." No, he says, whatever you are doing will make everything and anything you decide to go through work better for you. So that is what left me on the path of this work. And I must say that what I notice about myself is not as dramatic as yours, Ray. But I do notice about myself that when I get into fear, when I get into pessimistic thoughts, when I get into all kinds of dark places, I can get out easier and faster. And I think that Dr. Joe also says, I do react, I do things, but how long does it stay? How
Yes.
long am I there in this state of being?
Yes.
So everyone is on their own path, and people can believe or not believe or whatever they feel is okay because they are where they are right now. But after doing this work for quite a while, I can say that I do see a very big difference in the duration and how easy it is now to change my state of being from whatever is going on to what I want to go on in my head.
Yes, I can so relate to what you just talked about. And my wife and I talk about that a little bit, about me along that line. She remembers when anger was my normal everyday thing. And we still have events. Something happens. We get frustrated. We have plans that just fall apart because somebody messed something up. and I'll express myself for a few minutes. And then we go on our day, and Eileen is still upset because our plans just kind of fell apart because somebody else messed up, or we didn't plan right or something. And she'll look at me, "Aren't you mad?" I said, "No." She says, "But," so, "Oh, that was an hour ago. I'm not mad anymore. I put it away." So we have certain centers in our body that are there for our survival. We have chemicals in our body that are there for our survival. Anger is not bad. We need to be able to get our chemicals up when we need to. That's why they're there. But how long are you going to rest in it? Just like Karina talked about. Okay, so I got upset. By the end of the hour, I had put it away. I had realized I had sorted out what can be done and what can't be done, and I'm back to my normal, okay, self.
The other thing that it really took me a long time to learn is really that all I can affect is myself and my thinking and my actions, not somebody else's. So it comes to really very simple thing that helped me to regain my kind of uh, equilibrium or peace of mind. Is it loving to me? Number one, that's Dr. Joe's filter that I started to use a lot. So, is this loving to me? And the other one, can I do something about it? If I
Right.
can't do anything about it, then I just let it go. Period. I love it. As you say, just turn the lights on. I love it. I send my love. That's it. Period. And I
That's it.
go my way.
There are many things in our life that happen because it just life is chaos. Some of them we messed up, some of them somebody else did. The event isn't the issue we're talking about. It's our reaction to it and the energy that we put on it and tie and hold on to. Okay, something happens. We get in a car accident. Somebody gave us bad change. Somebody short us on a purchase. Somebody, and then, and it messes up our plans, and we get frustrated. Now, how long are you going to hold on to that energy? The event doesn't mean a hill of beans 2 days later. Are you still holding that energy? Let go of it. And the sooner you let go of it, the sooner your body goes back into a state of healing. That's it, Karina. You are just spot on in that. You just, okay, so you got upset. So it was frustrating. So you had to work your way through it. Okay, when it's all done, you go, okay. And you don't deny it happened. That's silly. It happened. What you do is you release the energy to it. You set your heart free. That's the goal of this work, so that you can go through your day without going, oh man, I used to get angry and be angry for days over something stupid. And just about time when I wore that one out, something else stupid would happen. I'd be angry again. I'd never be free of anger. Now it's just, even my wife is kind of surprised. Didn't that bother you? Yeah, that was kind of frustrating. That kind of messed that one up. Okay, back to my life, and let's see what we can do now.
Yeah, and if I may add one more thing that I learned here in this group, so I find it really, really, really helpful, is um, is very counterintuitive, or what it was for me, but you guys taught me that is really to when something comes up and it's more in our head than in the actual reality of what's happening. If something bad comes up, just love this thought, thank this thought, sit with this thought, don't try to push it anywhere, just sit with this, experience this, and say thank you, you are there, you saved me once, this is not working for me anymore, that's it, I'm releasing you, it's time for you to heal, it's time for you to leave my body. And
Let me help you take another step on that conversation. What is good and what is bad. Think about it. When you define something good or bad, what is it? Let me help you with my definition. Good is energy that enables or allows or helps my intention, whatever that is, going to the store, driving to the hardware store, going down the highway, anything that flows with my intention is good. The traffic's good. And we could be bumper to bumper, but if it's flowing, the traffic's good. Anything that resists my intention, I call bad. You notice there's absolutely no moral statement in this. Good helps my intention. Bad resists my intention. What is bad traffic? Oh man, I'm going 5 miles an hour on a highway designed to go 65 and 70. That's bad traffic. Good rain is when it gives my grass a nice watering. Bad rain means my yard's flooded and is going to kill my grass. What is good and what is bad? It is simply, without any moral judgment, that which assists our intention or that which doesn't. Now, here's the trick. Do you always know what is beneficial to you? How many times has something, quote, bad happened to you and it made you change your life and it turned out to be something really right for you? So just because you've labeled it good or bad doesn't mean at all whether it was beneficial to you or not. You could have an intention to do something, and your angel does everything in the power to interfere with you so that you can't get there because what's there isn't good for you. And you change your life because of some other interference, thinking, oh, I had a bad day today. Did you? Or did you have an angel trying to redirect your life? So even when things support your intention or resist it, be careful how you label it good or bad. And don't put any moral value on it. Just say, yeah, that was bad, meaning that resisted my intention. I wonder why. Have you ever wondered why traffic delays you and I wonder if I needed to miss something that I should have been there for, that I thought I wanted to be there for, or something like that. Well, anyway, it's just something to put in the computer of good and bad. That sometimes things that we think are bad help us change a direction in a life in a very beneficial way. So was it really bad? No, but bad's just a word to communicate. It interfered with my intention. Here's a sentence on the last paragraph of this chapter. I'm on page 46. The research of the past several decades clearly points to a few empowering truths. What you think is what you experience. Hold on to that one. And when it comes to your health, that's made possible by the amazing pharmaceuticopedia, I can't say the word, that you have within your body that automatically, exquisitely aligns with your thoughts. What you think is what you draw to you and you experience. What you think adjusts the chemicals of your body to help you be healthy or not. That is the history of the study of placebo. And I think that was pretty good. Karina, you had one last comment. I saw your hand go up.
I think somebody else had a question. I
Oh.
saw something in the chat. Thank you
Oh,
so
yeah.
much. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Gloria stuck her hand up there for a minute. Gloria, what did you want? What did you like to say?
Okay, here we go. I'm in the dark again. So, 2 questions. Have you had any psychotherapy, any kind of therapy to get there? To get there?
Well, my psychotherapy was the doctors had me sit in the chair, plugged me into my cancer bag, and sat in the chair. And
Okay,
within,
so you're saying
I,
no, you had
well,
no
no,
psychotherapy, no
well, from there I went and
one-on-one.
they led me by the arm to PTSD training, and that was my psychotherapy. And from the PTSD training, after I went through the 8 weeks of that, they sent me to a psychiatrist. Are they the ones that push drugs? The psychiatrist,
Yeah.
and I sat with him for a few months, and he drugged the shit out of me until I couldn't stand it anymore.
Well, psychiatrists, they push drugs. They don't do a lot of therapy. As a matter of fact, they're pretty lousy at it, a lot of them.
Well, that's the limit of my
But you never had any therapy. That's very
no.
interesting for you to get from where you were to where you are now. And my
Well,
second question, because I don't want to dominate the conversation again, is um, a lot of what you're promoting, it sounds very Buddhist.
to me, it sounds like Dr. Joe.
Okay. Okay.
That's all I know. I don't know much Buddhist. I just know Dr. Joe. I know a little bit of the Kabbalah. We could talk about the Kabbalah off record,
The
but
who? The what?
the Kabbalah is a Hebrew mysticism. I know a little bit about that.
Okay, that's kind of non-mainstream for me.
Right. That's
So
what I
you're
mean.
not
We could,
Christian. You're not. I
yeah,
mean, you don't have to answer. It's a very personal question.
yeah. But well, anyway, so I've had no therapy, no psychology training. Um, yeah, I've got some funny stories about my uh, college education where had to write papers on it and stuff, and well, anyway, that didn't go too well.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, that's all right. Thanks.
Yeah, so I speak strictly from my understanding and my enlightenment I got from doing the work of Dr. Joe.
Okay. And just reading or
Just reading the foundation. I try to be faithful to the discussion group with Dr. Joe, and I try to share the enlightenments I've had from his work in as clean a way as I know how. I don't allow uh, religion, politics, mysticism out of gurus and mystics that channel different things in this discussion. It's just, I try to keep it as Dr. Joe, that's the name of the group, Dr. Joe Discussion Group. And I really try to keep it close to that. There are some allowances in that are supportive to his ideas, and so I don't put restrictions on him. But
no, but you've met him
yes, I met him in conferences indirectly. I don't think I've never
indirectly.
I've never shaken his hand.
Whoa. Okay. Interesting.
I've just read his books a lot of times. Here's my placebo book, and I worked it so many times I broke the binder, so I took it to Office Depot and had them put this kind of binder on it.
It's pretty big.
But this is what I did. I damaged the book so much that it was falling apart. So I took it to Office Depot and they cut the binder off and put this ring on it. So I work these books pretty good. My intent is to help you understand some of the stories in his books that people trip over. And so I'm just trying to give you, as someone once said, footprints in the sand that you can walk in and learn and get free. That's my gift. Connie, I see your hand up.
Yes. I know that you had said, or someone a moment ago, that I think you read it something about we bring our energy, and I really, really feel people's energy whenever I go to an event, and I know that I think we draw in situations and people that we're in the sort of energy level or some, isn't there something about that? Like, for example, you, I've been to every one of these meetings and I just can't wait for Sunday nights, but to learn from you. But you have such a calming energy that you're going to bring something to me, whereas someone that has a very confrontational energy is it, my breathing changes. I've been very calm and now I'm having to force myself to deep breathe to calm myself down. And then one more thing about not letting things get to you, even with traffic. I don't ever have any, because any rage in my car. And if I am stuck on the expressway, for example, I tell you what comes to mind always is to me, oh my gosh, I'm glad I left my house, went back and I'd forgotten my glasses and I had to get them because I might have been in that accident. So I've been spared. So I
Yes.
just, it's just, I think just so you bring such a calming, which is so appealing, and I want to be around it. So my life is going to be different when I'm around people like you. I mean, I don't know how
That
that sounds, but anyway,
I love how it sounds. I thank you very much. That is my paycheck right there. You know, just somebody says, "Why do you do this?" Right? Because I spend hundreds of dollars every year buying this software, hundreds of hours every doing these classes, and I ask for nothing in return except a little conversation. And that was my paycheck. When I get somebody who goes, "I understand you, Ray," my heart just yes, that's one. I touch somebody. I love it. I love it. I love it.
you have. Thank you, sweetheart.
And I just love it. There's one guy here that in the last conference, I was walking down in the conference, there's 2,000 people there, and you walk by and everybody's stirring energy. And I walked by this one guy, and it just like I nearly tripped. And I turned, "Who are you?" And he was wearing the coolest t-shirt. And it's like, "Oh, I love that t-shirt." Yeah, he knows who I'm talking about. And I just his energy just almost made me trip because I just resonated with it. It's like, I don't know who you are, but let's get to know each other. And so it's just, yeah, that's the kind of thing you get so you can feel that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's a life that I knew nothing about before I started doing Dr. Joe's work. I am a human, a being of light. Hue, a frequency of light is a hue. I am a frequency of light man. That's pretty cool. Okay. I think we've said enough for tonight. Any last words before I end the recording? Okay, let me end the recording. Then if we got something private, we can say afterwards. Kathleen, do you want to get it on the recording or next?
Okay, but yes, after.
Okay, here we
Well,
go.
I might as well while the recording's going.
Okay.
I just want to again just tell you how much you mean to me for being the person who brought me into this work that changed my life. So I just love you.
Thank you very much. That kind of heart is contagious. Keep it going. Mr. Bob Z, you're looking in the camera like as if you're busting for something to say. Why don't you speak up?
Oh, Ray, that was great. That was great. We can't be reminded often enough. I
Thank you, sir.
sent you a little email about some other ideas.
Okay, I'll look for it. Emails or WhatsApp chat?
Email.
Okay, I'll look for it. All right. So, friends, countrymen, I say good night and I end the recording.